My name is Louise Richardson. I'm coming to a New York City fellowship from Perth in Western Australia. I'm feeling tired, but I also feel really satisfied in the month that has been, and just feeling very lucky to have had this time to go and be with myself somewhere else and to experience a whole different set of activities and cultural experiences, and the opportunity to just find my own way around and think about what I've done and reflect on it. It's very new for me. With the time that I had alone, it's quite a new experience for me as a mother of 3 small children. I was very excited about being alone. It was one of the aspects of the fellowship that I was very interested in seeing what that would be like for me. And when I first arrived, I had no idea what to do with myself. I think I said to Nancy, my hands aren't busy. I tidied the apartment and just organised the kitchen drawers. And then I went out and did things, but I think I had to process the space I was in before I could go out and explore. And I really enjoyed it. I've read lots of books. I just went and sat and watched things. I could walk anywhere I wanted without any need for looking after anybody. And I realised that there's actually a ton more time in the day when you don't have to account for anybody else. So that was an interesting experience. I think the changes over the month, because I thought, oh gosh, there's so much time, what am I going to do with myself? Going from a very kind of actions-based life and art making to experiencing and listening and sitting and thinking, and my hands aren't involved in most of those things. Writing, yes, but it's been interesting to have to still them for a month and to really enjoy that, and then realize that there isn't actually much time because the activities are a lot and they take a lot of my mental energy, and everything is new because I'm in a new place, or it's a completely new experience, or I don't know where I'm going, and all of those things mean I have to be switched on in a different way. And sometimes I find that the hands and the head they can't both operate at the same time. Whereas here I have to operate my head, at home I'm operating my hands, and my head is just in waiting. Do you know, I don't know, you can listen to a story and draw, but I can't listen to a lecture and do anything with my hands. So they just need different parts of me. So it's been an interesting exercise in remembering that this is just as busy as this. I did find some of the activities particularly difficult, and it was surprising to me because there were activities, and they weren't the ones I thought they would be, and they're the ones that I have a physical response to, and they're things that, the ones I was worried about were improv classes. And I thought it'll be okay. And then when I was going there, and when I got there, your heart rate rises, I'm having an adrenaline rush. I physically did not want to be in that space. And it was surprising to me, the reaction to a safe environment that I'm never going to go to again. So it really doesn't matter. But I was just like, nope. So it was very interesting. And then there were ones that I absolutely knew I was going to hate, like going to the Fox Conservative talk show. But I am in some ways glad that I did it, because it gave me a little taste of being complicit in a horrible environment, and just to remind me how easily that can happen. So it's a very politically poignant small moment for me. But it did make me feel, it was an interesting, in hindsight, it made me feel there's a lot of pressure about being in the United States that I didn't really think about. There's a lot of security everywhere, and there's a lot of kind of implicit pressure from that to behave in a certain way, or to be in the right place, if you're not supposed to be there, there's kind of like every door, every university, you need ID, all of that stuff is quite unfamiliar for me, and I feel like I'm not supposed to be in most of these places because I'm just a random person who's being sent to an activity that I don't know much about, and I don't want to tell them that I'm there as a form of kind of artistic social experiment, because I don't think that would be nice to hear. Like, I'm just interested in watching you because it's going to grow me is not a great conversation, so I mostly didn't tell them. I just said a friend sent me, end of story. The activities I liked the most were the activities where I got to touch another human being. I know that sounds, I didn't realise, it was a surprise to me, and I guess maybe I'm very used to being touched all of the time because I have small children and they have no sense of personal space. And it is funny because I'm in New York, and to me I'm like, I have no personal space here because there's so many people, and you can't, unless you're inside the apartment, you can't be alone. But I love the activities of volunteering where I got to help people in wheelchairs exercise. It was very physical. You're touching their body and helping them. And then going to the Quaker meeting, and at the end of an hour of silence, you shake someone's hand and say good morning. And I found that a very profound moment, and realised that, I hadn't touched somebody for a week, which is a really strange experience for me. So it can be like, there's a million people around me, but I'm very alone. Yeah, I did find it challenging to live in a very populated space because it's not something that I'm used to. I live on a farm. We have neighbours are like 10 kilometres away. There's a lot of space around us, and I take it for granted and realise, just being able to be outside but alone is impossible here. And I never really had thought about, I don't know, it seems obvious, but I hadn't thought about that experience. So a big part of it is just seeing that there are many ways that people live, and having a taste of those different sort of ways of being in a place. It's probably going to be quite overwhelming when I get home because I have had a month to myself, and it's always a lot to kind of re-enter your life. But I'm really grateful for the time that I have had here, and the time to just experience a completely different set of, life experiences, and to learn a lot more about American culture and the history and the different people that live here and how the nation has been built has been really interesting for me, to look at home in a different way, and to look at the different political situations and the cultural differences and how things are built, and kind of use the comparison to learn more about where I'm from and how the different forces have built the political, social, environmental situation we're in now. And I think sometimes comparison is the best way to teach us about ourselves. Yeah, I think it has reminded me that in order to it has reminded me that I need to take action if I want changes, or I maybe have been more of a passive player in the political situation or just the community situation at home, and it's made me realise that I actually would like to be more involved in volunteering things, in supporting different groups, and that there are similar activities that I've been to here that I've really enjoyed, like the quilting workshop and just going to protests and listening to lectures, and just reminding myself that I can take a more active cultural role, because I forget in my day-to-day life that it's very selfishly insular about just running myself and my family, and that I actually do enjoy those other things. When I say I want to do more things, I mean over a year I would like to introduce them so they become part of a rhythm and a practice that I will actually keep doing, So I'm not going to just suddenly go home and try and replicate the activity level here, because I will burn out from that. But I do want to incorporate some volunteering and some political action that's meaningful and at a community level. And I also want to build my artistic community as well and do more work within that, especially. And I think it's probably a situation of where we're at with our family is it's very hard to be engaged when you have small children, but I'm at the point where I realise that I want that again. With therapy and working with Nancy, that's fine, but I'm comfortable with working in that kind of environment. I already have somebody that I talk to regularly, so it wasn't uncomfortable for me to talk to her. And Nancy's really a fantastic listener and just said lots of really nice things, and she made me feel like it was completely okay to feel how I was feeling or just be where I was, which was really good, especially at the beginning. So yeah, I found it a helpful session, and also half the time I think I will say something to her and then I'll go away and think about it and be like, actually that's not really what I felt, but it helped me decide how I felt. But yeah, it was really, we had lots of very interesting conversations, and I do think maybe it also just filled the role of, you don't get to talk that much when you're on your own. And sometimes I felt like I went there and just and felt a bit funny about it afterwards, but maybe all of those words had to just come out. I did find the journal really helpful to make sure that I spent time thinking about the experience in a way that I can translate it into telling somebody else about it. And I also found it extremely helpful to be able to update a couple of friends and family at home about what I was doing. In just, you know, I said to them, this is a first draft, this is just raw as I'm experiencing it, but it meant that I could be connected and let them know what I was doing without having to have the burden of explaining each day on the phone to a whole lot of people what I'm doing. Like, that's like the labour of being on holiday in some, or away, whatever. The journal did help in that way. So it has multiple purposes, and it also means I can explain in the future kind of why I was here in a career and artistic sense, which I think is important, because whilst a lot of it is not about my work as an artist and my practice, and it's deliberately trying to put that to the side for a while, it is still part of that journey, and I wanted to make sense in my work in the future and my career path. So the journal has been really helpful in that way for me. That's how I kind of see it. I really am keen to just to share it so that I can share my experience without just saying, oh, how was New York? It was great, or really interesting, which does not sum it up at all, because how can you sum up 30 days of very disparate, interesting experiences and how they all link together and how you're feeling at the time? So I think the journal was really great for that. And I'm going to try not to edit too much into it afterwards. My opinion about New York has changed from the beginning to the end, and I think I feel a lot more comfortable now. I have more of a sense of direction and can get around. I can finally take the right exit out of the subway to get to the apartment. You know, those things make a little bit more sense. I know a little bit more where the different like suburbs areas are, and feel a bit more confident navigating it. I think when I arrived, so much about America, because it's so pervasive in movies and popular culture, like just being in the subway, a part of my brain is always occupied with that there will be a natural disaster or some kind of monster that comes into the subway, and just other things which are more kind of like problematic traumatic, and so many films that were shown, if you go into the Bronx or up into that area, it's dangerous, and you know, if you go to America, you're going to get shot on the street. You know, those things are really pervasive in films, and I didn't realize that I had all of these biases that are not true and don't reflect the experience of being here, but they are in so many movies, and so many American movies are really very violent. They're very about the military, they're very about conflict and racial conflict, and they portray things in a way that is not true to the experience of being here. And I think that is quite damaging from an international sort of perspective, and that I didn't realise quite how much of the stuff from what I have seen in, you know, newspapers and social media and all of those things has infiltrated how I felt in those spaces.